Charlie Elphicke was the Tory MP for Dover from 2010 to 2019. Under David Cameron, Elphicke had served in the Whip's office. In 2017, he was suspended from the Tories after abuse allegations were made against him by two parliamentary staffers. And in 2020, he was convicted of 3 counts of sexual assault. With regards to those convictions, one of the victims was a nanny working in his family home, another a member of his staff in the Commons. Elphicke's story is, in many ways, a familiar one of how powerful men can exploit their positions to abuse women. But it's also one about the relative impunity of Britain's most privileged. Despite an ongoing police investigation, Elphicke was reinstated to the Tory party in 2018 on the eve of a confidence vote in Prime Minister Theresa May. And this weekend, we discovered that for the past 4 years, Elphicke had been using Britain's stringent libel laws to silence one of his alleged victims. The story appeared in the Sunday Times, who had been the target of Elphicke's long-running legal campaign. He was suing them because of a story they published in 2018 describing allegations from one of Elphicke's accusers. At the time, they reported this. The Sunday Times has a signed statement from the alleged victim in which she claims that she was raped by the MP. I was explicitly clear I did not want to have sex with him, and he was aware of this, she says. I was visibly very upset at the time. The woman in question, who they're calling Jane, went to the Sunday Times after feeling let down by the police, who she says didn't appear to believe her and didn't even inform Charlie Elphicke that her allegations had been made. Elphicke's libel case against the Sunday Times scared other outlets from reporting on Jane's allegations, and they also meant Jane had to relive her ordeal. Charlie Elphicke withdrew the libel claim last Wednesday, which is why the Sunday Times are now able to report on the story. We'll get into the details of the case and its implications in one moment. First, let's answer a basic question. Why was a sex offender ex-MP able to silence an alleged victim 2 years after his conviction? Well, it's important to be clear. Jane was not one of the 2 women who Elphicke was convicted of assaulting. It was 2 other women whose testimony led to his convictions. But that doesn't mean Jane's claim didn't have weight. We know that because of the appalling way rape is handled by our police and our courts, only 1.6% of rape allegations lead to a charge. The figure will be even lower for convictions. So it seems the ability of Elphicke to gag his alleged victim has less to do with the strength of her claims, which the Sunday Times deemed to be credible, and more to do with Britain's defunct libel laws. Unlike in other countries, the law here places the burden of proof on publishers, not claimants. And cases are often pursued by expensive lawyers on a no-win, no-fee basis. The Sunday Times report, after the intervention of Carter Ruck, who represented Elphicke, and the decision to sue for libel, the burden was on the Sunday Times to defend its decision to publish, rather than on Elphicke to prove why we should not have done so. Carter Ruck and Elphicke had signed a conditional fee arrangement, or a no-win, no-fee arrangement, basically, meaning that it stood to gain financially by pursuing the newspaper for as long as possible. The newspaper has spent countless hours and more than £500,000 defending itself over the April 2018 articles. It mounted 2 defences in court, saying that not only were the reports in the public interest, but that they were true. So the Sunday Times, for reporting allegations they deemed to be credible, were now tasked with proving they were actually true. Now that's an incredibly high burden of proof, which is why so many libel claimants find these things worth it to pursue this. So you've written something I don't like. Can you 100% prove this? No, then I'm going to sue you, right? It's this incredibly high burden of proof, which means that it is so expensive to defend against libel claims. The Sunday Times spent £500,000 fighting this case, and they also risk being on the line for Carter Ruck's legal fees. We can expect these to be enormous, hence their willingness to fight the case on a no-win, no-fee basis. If they win, they can, they really rake it in. Significantly, these potentially extortionate costs meant other outlets avoided covering the allegations against Elphicke, and that included the BBC. You'd have thought, they should have deep pockets. Indeed, the BBC was so scared that when the Sunday Times splashed the allegations on their front page, the Andrew Marr show refused to show it. really striking. They normally show every front page on the Andrew Marr Show. They didn't show the Sunday Times front page that day because they were so scared that the man in question would sue them. So the gagging was evidently successful, which raises the question why Charlie Elphicke has now dropped the claims. On that front, the Sunday Times report, it was only this month, after Elphicke and his team were presented with the woman's first-person account, that they abandoned their libel case. Elphicke claimed he had done so to protect the woman from the trauma of testifying. How noble of him. Now, one might question whether protecting this woman from trauma was genuinely what led Charlie Elphicke to drop the claim, especially as he had already made her fight the claim for almost 4 years. On that front, Jane told the Sunday Times this: I feel that because of the claimant's actions in pursuing the Sunday Times after publication, he has been able to punish and torture me, effectively forcing me to prove that I'm a victim of rape and sexual assault without any repercussions. I do not wish to keep reliving this and hope that my involvement with this man will soon be over. Barnaby, we've talked on this show before about how Britain's libel laws disincentivize hard-hitting journalism into powerful people because the fear of being sued is so high, the burden of proof is so high. What this, I think, also demonstrates is that our libel laws could disincentivize people from even talking to journalists, because it could turn out that a story written about you then have to testify that it is 100% true, basically, going through a second trial, going through a second investigation even after you've spoken to the police. The whole thing is really, really grotesque, isn't it?
Yes, power is everywhere the enemy of dignity and freedom. If a boss has the power to dismiss you, knowing that you will not be able to make ends meet, you're in his control and he can abuse and harass you. And if a man knows that he can mistreat a woman and there will be no consequences, that's how abuse spreads. Unless we pay attention, laws are made to suit the powerful people who pay for them. And Britain has the best laws money can buy. I'm really glad you're covering this because we are in a kind of topsy-turvy reality. Government ministers talk of championing free speech. Then they ban organizations from boycotting apartheid in Israel, and they ensure that journalists are chilled from speaking freely, but only if their target's rich. Just think about that. Tabloids can bully the poor and the marginalized as much as they like, but if you want to say anything about someone rich, you better think twice. So we effectively have two legal frameworks, one for the wealthy whose friends write the laws, and another for their victims. If you're on benefits, or a refugee, or a public sector worker, you can be humiliated by Murdoch's journalists every day of the week. They can intrusively harass and abuse you. Meanwhile, rich men know they can abuse women, exploit their workers, and silence critics, and they call this freedom.
Even the BBC was scared to show a front page that someone else had ran with. And this is the BBC, they've got deep pockets. How is anyone else supposed to be able to hold the powerful to account? We spoke on a previous show how Laura Murray's completely, to my mind, reasonable tweet about Rachel Riley, which even the judge admitted or accepted, I should say, was a reasonable interpretation of what she had said. Even that meant that she, is potentially on the line for £1 million in legal fees. There's no limit to this. Libel laws don't work in the same way that other laws do because you can't get legal aid. There doesn't seem to be any limit whatsoever in terms of what the cost will be that you have to pay these incredibly expensive lawyers who are basically, to my mind, playing a pretty parasitic role here. The other grotesque angle to this story concerns how implicated the Conservatives more generally are. As I've already explained, Charlie Elphicke had the whip restored in 2018. That was before Theresa May's confidence vote. They didn't give an explanation, by the way. It was withdrawn again in 2019 when he was charged. But guess who replaced him as the Tory candidate for Dover? His wife. Natalie Elphicke has flip-flopped on support for Charlie. She supported him throughout the trial, but then tweeted the marriage was over after his conviction. She then went on to announce she would in fact support his appeal. In 2021, a year after Charlie's conviction, Natalie Elphicke would tell The Sun, Charlie is charming, wealthy, charismatic and successful, attractive and attracted to women. All things that in today's climate made him an easy target for dirty politics and false allegations. She also told The Sun, it was obvious to me from reading the evidence during lockdown that the criminal allegations against him were complete nonsense, and I still believe they are. Elphicke was paid £25,000, by the way, by The Sun for 2 other tell-all articles in 2020. She's not just a backbench MP, she's a vice chair of the Conservative Party. The Sunday Times also report that 4 other Tory MPs are implicated in the affair. Sir Roger Gale, Theresa Villiers, Adam Holloway and Bob Stewart all signed a letter organised by Natalie Elphicke pressing Mrs Justice Whipple not to disclose their character statements for Charlie Elphicke. They were all forced to apologise or were briefly suspended by the Commons Standard Committee, so a non-partisan body, for trying to improperly influence a judge. Barnaby, I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that none of these people should be in politics. You know, on one level, you say, oh, a wife defending her husband, difficult situation to be in, whatever. But if you are an MP, you shouldn't be saying those things about someone who has been convicted of sexual assault.
Well, that depends what you think politics is. I mean, if it's a place where the cleverest people debate the best ideas to help others, then clearly the current crop have walked into the wrong job. But if it's a kind of after-dinner club, some weekend fun after a career in banking, or a training ground for profitable corporate directorships later on, then this lot on both sides are perfectly placed. It all suggests a kind of stitch-up in which politics is working just fine for people who want to use it as a tool for the reproduction of class power. That's what it is. It allows people who already have a lot of class power to retire for a few evenings in the House of Commons bar after a successful career in law or banking. And it allows people who aspire to be part of that ruling class to prove their loyalty and then walk into lots of nice corporate directorships afterwards. I think it's working just fine for them. It's just not working very well for most people.
Let's end this segment with a recent video of Natalie Elphicke doing her job as a constituency MP. Here she is taking part in a demonstration against job losses at P&O ferries. Watch how it backfires.
You voted for fire and rehire. You voted for fire and rehire. Shame on you. 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 Shame on you.
I will be marching for the jobs in Dover, for the people of Dover, and for the disgusting behaviour of P&O and DP World.
The steel workers, the coal miners, the shipbuilders, everybody.
I am here for the people of Dover. No, you're not. You're here.
That is the standard of the current crop of Tory MPs. Vice chair of the Conservative Party. She's chanting, shame on you, thinking that she's joining in a chant against the bosses of P&O ferries. Then she realises that they're saying shame on you about her because she voted against a Labour proposal to ban fire and rehire. So she's saying, shame on you, shame on... And then she realised, oh, crap. They're saying shame on me about me. I have absolutely no sympathy for her in any way whatsoever. I cannot find a single grain of sympathy for that woman. All solidarity to the protesters there. And to, you know, I don't normally say it, but to the Sunday Times for fighting this libel battle, and to the woman who was involved in giving that testimony to the Sunday Times.